When I first pulled into Brookside Heights, a modest condo complex perched at the edge of a mid-sized American city, I was struck by the neatness of everything. Neatly trimmed lawns, flower beds arranged in perfect rows, and a welcoming sign that read, Brookside Heights, a sustainable community. The real estate listing had promised an eco-friendly ethos, rain barrels, recycling initiatives, well-maintained green spaces. It felt like an ideal match for my lifestyle, since I'd always cared about the environment and appreciated neighbors who shared that passion. The complex comprised several low-rise buildings arranged around a central courtyard. A few trees dotted the grassy space, and a small pond glistened near the back fence. The Homeowners Association was known for championing green measures, like banning harmful pesticides and encouraging carpooling. A large notice board in the lobby displayed tips on composting, climate-friendly gardening, and local environmental events. I'd only been living in Brookside Heights a few weeks when I heard whispers about a certain woman who seemed to run the HOA with an iron fist, HOA Karen. She was the self-proclaimed champion of the Eco Council, a small subcommittee of the HOA that supposedly enforced all sustainability measures. Neighbors described her as a woman in her mid-50s, hair precisely styled, always wearing pastel cardigans and brandishing a clipboard. She was rumored to be overbearing, quick to cite environmental codes, or threaten fines if you didn't comply with her demands. At first, I figured these were typical exaggerated stories that swirl around any strong-willed HOA member. But soon I would learn that Karen was more than just firm about eco-friendliness. She was forceful, controlling, and, as I'd discover, opportunistic. My second day in the condo, I received a letter on official HOA stationery bearing Karen's signature. Dear resident, welcome to Brookside Heights, proud to be a beacon of sustainability. Kindly note that all cleaning products used within our units must meet the standards set by our Eco Council. For your convenience, I offer a line of recommended all-green clean products at competitive prices, meeting these strict guidelines. See the attached flyer for details on ordering. I encourage you to purchase exclusively from me to remain in compliance. Sincerely, Karen, Eco Council Director, Brookside Heights. Reading this, my brow furrowed. All cleaning products must meet the Eco Council standards. And apparently, the only brand that complied was the one Karen herself sold? This arrangement reeked of conflict of interest. Yet, at that point, I chalked it up to a well-intentioned but pushy neighbor who wanted everyone to be green. Little did I realize, Karen's plan went far beyond well-intentioned. She was trying to corner the market on eco-friendly solutions, raking in profit from unsuspecting neighbors who, out of fear or ignorance, complied with her demands. And I was about to find myself right in the middle of it all. Over the following weeks, the talk in the building's hallways revolved around Karen's green mandate. Residents described how she insisted that every occupant use only certain all-natural or non-toxic solutions in daily cleaning tasks. Floor cleaners, dish soap, laundry detergent, you name it. Officially, the HOA had adopted a bylaw requiring that any cleaning chemicals used inside units and in communal areas meet certain environmental criteria. In theory, that sounded positive. In practice, Karen single-handedly decided what brand or product met those criteria, ignoring well-established eco-friendly labels readily available in stores. Instead, she pushed her own brand, the ironically named All Green Clean, which only she supplied. A neighbor, Janice, told me over coffee. I tried showing Karen the label on my store-bought, plant-based cleaner, but she dismissed it, claiming it contained harmful phosphates. She threatened me with a fine if I didn't switch to her brand. So now I feel compelled to buy her overpriced stuff. Another neighbor, David, recounted how Karen had marched into his condo for a surprise inspection, checking under his sink for contraband cleaners. She rummaged through my supplies, found a mainstream biodegradable soap, and said it didn't meet her standard. She gave me a week to toss it out or face a penalty. David was livid but felt powerless. Rumors said Karen was turning a tidy profit from these forced sales. She sold a gallon of All Green Clean concentrate at prices far higher than typical green products in the local eco store. Some residents found the cost burdensome but felt too scared to challenge her. After all, she was the face of the HOA's Eco Council, claiming to enforce official policy. People who questioned it encountered threats of fines, or unneighborly scorn. Meanwhile, Karen boasted about improving our building's environmental impact. I, however, smelled a scam. If this brand was truly top-notch, why not let residents buy any recognized green product from local shops? Why the monopoly? My suspicion deepened when I saw the cheap plastic jugs in which Karen delivered all green clean. The label was plain, with vague claims of organic, non-toxic, 100% safe, but no recognized certification logos. The ingredient list was minimal, lacking real specifics. I wondered if it was truly as eco-friendly as she claimed, or if it was just repackaged low-quality detergent. That's when I decided I needed to do more than grumble. If Karen was scamming the building under the guise of environmental goodness, we had to expose it. But I needed proof, not just suspicions. So I hatched a plan to obtain a sample of her product and have it tested for actual ingredients. A bit of detective work, plus some basic chemistry analysis, could reveal if Karen's formula was legitimate or subpar. If I uncovered the truth, maybe the board or the residents would stand up to her. One afternoon, Karen knocked on my door, wearing a pastel green cardigan and holding a clipboard. She greeted me with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Hello, I wanted to ensure you're aware of our building's green product requirement. Have you purchased your All Green Clean yet?" She extended a flyer. "I have more jugs in stock if you need them." This was my chance. Feigning politeness, I said, "Not yet. I appreciate your stopping by. I do want to comply with the Eco Council's guidelines. Could I buy a bottle to get started? Also, I'd love to see if you have a data sheet or certification. I'm always curious about the ingredients." She waved off the request for certification. "Oh, rest assured, it's thoroughly vetted. I've done my own research. Our board trusts me to evaluate these chemicals properly." She then offered me a large jug at a not insignificant price. I stifled a grimace, handing over the money. She filled out a brief invoice on her form and gave me a copy, reminding me, "Keep using only this or else confirm with me if you buy something else, or you risk noncompliance." Then she left with a smug nod. Closing the door, I examined the jug in detail. The label read, "All Green Clean Concentrate, planet-friendly formula for floors, surfaces, dishes." The back had generic statements like, "made from natural extracts," and "phosphate-free," but no real breakdown of active ingredients. Perfect. If my suspicion was correct, it might contain standard cheap detergent or questionable components. Next step. Find a local lab or a friend who could analyze it. I remembered I had an old college friend, Lisa, who worked in a small environmental testing lab. If she was willing, she might do me a favor and run a quick analysis of the formula. That evening, I called Lisa and explained the bizarre situation. She laughed, intrigued, and said she'd happily run a basic composition test to check for harmful chemicals or verify it was truly green. We arranged for me to drop off a small sample in a sealed container. She'd run it through some standard tests for surfactants, phosphates, pH levels, and presence of synthetic fragrances. "Don't expect super advanced forensics," she warned. "But I can certainly identify if it's basically normal soap or if it has suspicious chemicals." That was all I needed. The next day, I poured a few ounces of the cleaner into a small jar, labeled it, and delivered it to Lisa's lab. She estimated it'd take a week or so, given her current workload. Meanwhile, I kept the rest of the jug at home, occasionally sniffing it. It smelled vaguely citrusy, but also somewhat chemical. Hard to pin down. If Karen was cutting corners, the lab test might reveal phosphates or other noxious elements. Or maybe it was just extremely watered down, not performing as well as real green cleaners. As I waited for the results, I listened to more neighbors' gripes. A few said the All Green Clean didn't even work that well. Some complained it left streaks or residue. Another neighbor, who used it for laundry, found it didn't remove odors effectively. Yet Karen's stance was unwavering. "This is the only product meeting our building's standard," she'd declare. Some hypothesized she was buying cheap industrial soap in bulk, slapping on a green label and marking up the price. If that were true, it was borderline fraud. During this waiting period, rumors flew that the board's finances had a line item for eco-consultant, which might be paying Karen. The story grew more suspicious by the day, but I tried not to jump to conclusions. I needed that lab analysis to confirm or deny the product's authenticity. Meanwhile, Karen continued raking in money from reluctant residents. If the results showed it was subpar, I'd have all I needed to blow the lid off her scam at the next HOA meeting. If it somehow turned out legit, well, I'd at least have peace of mind. But my gut told me we were dealing with a con job disguised as eco-friendly zeal. About a week later, Lisa called me, her tone brimming with intrigue. You won't believe it. The sample you gave me? The formula is basically a cheap detergent blend with questionable additives. I found higher than expected phosphate content, actually, contrary to the label claiming phosphate-free. Also, it has artificial fragrances and a suspicious foaming agent that's not typically labeled eco-friendly. Overall, it's definitely not the planet-friendly product it claims. It's subpar. Frankly, you can get better green cleaners in any grocery aisle. My heart leapt. This was the smoking gun. Not only was Karen's product unimpressive, it actually contradicted her main selling points, like being phosphate-free. She was pushing a formula that was neither particularly green nor high quality, possibly harmful for the environment if used extensively. This was exactly the evidence needed to challenge her monopoly. Lisa, you're a lifesaver, I gushed. She promised to email me a short written summary of the test results, enough to present to the board or the community as proof. Feeling vindicated, I prepared a small folder, the test summary with chemical breakdown, pictures of the product label's claims, plus anecdotal complaints from neighbors about its poor performance. My plan: attend the next HOA meeting, just a few days away, and expose Karen's deception in front of everyone. Perhaps that would force the board to revoke the mandatory policy, or at least let residents choose their own genuinely eco-friendly brand. I was excited but also cautious. Karen had a strong hold on the board, or so I'd heard. I needed to present my findings calmly, systematically, so people would realize I wasn't just stirring trouble. The lab results were objective, though, so if the board cared about actual facts, they'd be compelled to act. Meanwhile, I shared a sneak peek with a few trusted neighbors who were outraged and vowed to back me up at the meeting. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation. The monthly HOA meeting took place in the building's community lounge, a bright room with chairs arranged in rows facing a long table where the board members sat. Karen, poised in her pastel blazer, arranged her papers neatly. The board president, a kindly older woman named Monica, called the meeting to order. After some minor agenda items, Monica introduced the topic of eco-friendly cleaning product compliance, the new measure that forced residents to buy from Karen. A hush fell. Karen stood, adopting a self-assured smile. I want to remind everyone that we are mandated to use only environment-safe cleaning solutions. That's why we introduced All Green Clean, proven to be the best option. Anyone not purchasing from me must submit proof of compliance. I hope we're all on board for a greener building. At this point, I raised my hand. Monica recognized me. I stepped forward, folder in hand. I appreciate the building's dedication to sustainability. However, I have concerns about the product we're all forced to buy. I had All Green Clean tested in a lab. I have the results here. Unfortunately, they contradict the brand's claims. The formula contains phosphates, artificial fragrances, and a questionable foaming agent. It's not the eco-friendly solution it's advertised to be. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen's face tightened. What sort of test? Where's your proof? She demanded. I calmly held up the lab summary, distributing copies to the board members. A local environmental testing lab analyzed it. Here are the chemical findings. The label on the jug says phosphate-free, but the test found a notable phosphate presence. That's false advertising. Karen tried to wave it off. This must be an error or possibly contamination. My product is absolutely green. I've used it myself for years. I pressed on. Then how do you explain the lab's detection of these agents? Why does your label not match the actual composition? If you claim it's zero phosphates, but it's not, that's misleading. We have neighbors who fully trust your brand. They're paying extra for a solution that's not truly eco-friendly. At that, a neighbor exclaimed, "We're paying top dollar for a product that isn't even what it claims? This is a scam." Another resident chimed in, "I never saw official certifications on the label. Just your word, Karen." The room's energy shifted from compliance to outrage. Monica, the president, furrowed her brow, flipping through the lab summary. "Karen, can you produce any third-party certification for All Green Clean?" Karen stammered. "Well, I have some personal references. My formula is based on a private recipe. We don't need a big-name certification. You all know me. I wouldn't cheat anyone." She tried to maintain dignity, but the evidence was stark. Finally, Monica asked me, "Do you have more details from the lab?" I summarized Lisa's findings. Yes, the concentration of phosphates is roughly 2.5%. That's not extremely high, but definitely not zero. The artificial fragrance is also documented. My friend at the lab indicated it fails typical eco-label criteria. For context, widely available green brands surpass it in quality. The crowd erupted in discussion. Another board member said, "This is serious. Forcing residents to buy a subpar product under false claims is unethical. We need to reconsider the mandatory rule." With the room turning against her, Karen's composure faltered. She insisted it was a minor oversight, claiming the phosphates were minimal. But the damage was done. She was caught selling something misrepresented as phosphate-free. Residents demanded refunds. Some threatened official complaints or legal action if the board didn't rectify the situation. The scene was chaotic, culminating in Monica promising an immediate board vote to suspend the mandatory use of all green clean until further investigation. Within that same meeting, under pressure from an angry crowd, the board unanimously voted to suspend the Karen's product-only rule. They declared that any recognized green brand from reputable stores would satisfy the building's eco-guidelines. The board also insisted on an investigation into how Karen had introduced the measure and whether she'd misled them about the product's composition. Karen tried to protest that all green clean was still safe, but no one wanted to hear it. The message was clear. The building wouldn't be scammed into paying premium prices for a substandard formula. With the immediate threat removed, residents rejoiced. Finally, they could buy legitimate eco-friendly cleaners from local shops without fear of fines. Some demanded refunds for the jugs they'd purchased. Indeed, many had spent significant money on large quantities. The board, faced with a wave of complaints, decided Karen must offer refunds or risk being found personally liable. People queued up outside her condo, brandishing half-empty jugs. She begrudgingly wrote checks or gave partial reimbursements, though she tried to scold them for using too much product. This only fueled more resentment. Meanwhile, the fiasco sparked broader questions about the HOA's governance. Why had Karen been allowed to push the measure without a thorough check? The board admitted they'd let her spearhead eco-council decisions, trusting her knowledge. Now they realized they needed actual standards, like requiring recognized third-party certifications or disclaimers. Some board members apologized publicly for not verifying claims. They resolved to be more transparent, possibly forming a new committee with multiple voices, not just Karen's. The entire meltdown left Karen's reputation in tatters. Still, she tried to cling to her seat on the board, but her sway was weakened. Even the neighbors who once admired her green passion saw her scheme as opportunistic. Some wondered if she'd buy cheap industrial soap in bulk, add some fragrance, then label it as all green. The truth might never be fully known, but the test results were damning enough. News of the bogus eco-cleaner scandal spread quickly through Brookside Heights, turning Karen into a subject of ridicule behind closed doors. People whispered jokes like, "Better watch out," or "She'll brand your dish soap illegal if you don't buy from her." The fiasco even reached a local environmental group that used to partner with the building. They distanced themselves, worried that the building's green image had been compromised by her scam. The board scrambled to reassure them that Karen acted alone and that genuine eco-friendly measures would remain a priority, but with real standards. Eventually, the building's monthly newsletter ran an article clarifying that residents were free to choose any recognized green brand, listing actual certifications to look for: EPA Safer Choice, Green Seal, etc. They apologized for the inconvenience caused by the enforced single-brand approach. This was effectively an official condemnation of Karen's product. Some neighbors saved that newsletter as a keepsake of the day the building stood up to Karen's nonsense. Meanwhile, Karen tried to salvage her standing. She claimed her brand was misunderstood or that the lab tests were inaccurate, but her words fell flat. The board demanded she remove all promotional flyers for All Green Clean from the building's bulletin boards or face an official censure. She complied, forced to quietly stop peddling the product. A wave of relief followed. No more door-to-door hawking of her questionable formula. Residents felt freer, relieved from the fear of inspections or fines. They joked about the random midday green checks Karen once performed, rummaging through cleaning supplies. Now, they were confident she lacked the authority to enforce anything on her own. Freed from Karen's monopoly, the building ironically found it simpler to become truly environmentally responsible by letting folks pick from a wide array of verified green cleaners that actually worked well. Following the scandal, a group of truly eco-conscious neighbors formed a new green committee, separate from Karen. They invited me to join, given I'd exposed her fiasco. The group's goal: implement real, transparent sustainability measures, like organizing a weekend composting workshop or switching the building's communal cleaning staff to genuinely certified green supplies. They sought actual local environmental group endorsements, ensuring no more bogus products. The board welcomed this new group, eager to repair the building's tarnished reputation. Under the guidance of that newly formed Green Committee, Brookside Heights introduced sensible programs: a well-labeled recycling center, occasional e-waste collection drives, plus an official list of recommended, but not mandatory, green cleaning brands. People embraced these options because they were helpful and honest, not forced upon them with inflated prices. The synergy was remarkable. With Karen's self-serving approach removed, residents felt more engaged in environmental efforts. Karen, meanwhile, tried to remain on the board, attending meetings with a subdued demeanor. She rarely proposed new policies, and if she did, the board demanded thorough documentation. Occasionally, she'd push minor suggestions, like a ban on certain plastic ornaments, but no longer with the same force. The fiasco had taught everyone to scrutinize her intentions. She complained at times about being unfairly blamed, but few sympathized. She recognized that her days of controlling the building's eco-narrative were over. Months passed, and I personally felt proud that we had replaced Karen's shady scheme with real, beneficial practices. The building's sense of community grew stronger after we overcame the crisis together. Residents recognized each other's desire for a green lifestyle, but on honest, collaborative terms, no shady profiteering. Over time, Brookside Heights recovered from the embarrassment of the All Green Clean scandal. The local environmental group that parted ways eventually returned, commending the building's new open approach. We held a small green fair in the courtyard, inviting vendors of legitimate eco-products, letting residents sample items. That event replaced Karen's monopoly with a free market of proven solutions, ironically fostering a healthier, more genuinely sustainable environment. Karen's own brand vanished from the premises. On rare occasions, you'd see a neighbor returning a leftover jug, hoping to get some money back. But beyond that, All Green Clean slipped into memory as a cautionary tale. Neighbors told newcomers about how we once had a fiasco with a fake green cleaner, learning to rely on official certifications instead. The new normal felt calmer, more balanced, with the board no longer pushing nonsense. The fiasco also taught the board to impose checks on any future subcommittee head. They set up guidelines requiring outside verification or recognized standards for any building-wide requirement. This structural reform prevented future Karens from single-handedly imposing bogus products or fees. Residents were relieved. Some said, "At least we got a strong system out of that fiasco." For me, personally, it felt rewarding to see that my step of sending the sample for lab testing was the turning point. By revealing the Subpar formula, we cut through Karen's intimidation and unraveled her scheme. The entire building realized they weren't obligated to buy an unverified concoction. My neighbor Lisa, who had tested the product in her lab, became something of a local hero. People would mention, "Give it to the lab if you doubt it's real green," turning her into the building's informal science advisor. The entire saga ended up strengthening communal ties, ironically thanks to Karen's attempt to exploit us. A few months after the scandal, I encountered Karen in the building's mailroom. She looked tired but tried to act civil. "I see the new Green Committee's been quite active," she said stiffly. "At least the building's still focusing on sustainability." Her tone lacked the usual arrogance. I simply nodded. "Yes, we're doing real environmental improvements. This time with transparent products." I gently emphasized transparent, a subtle jab at her fiasco. She didn't lash out. Instead, she gave a reluctant nod. "I suppose that's a step forward." She parted ways with a half-hearted smile. It wasn't an apology, but maybe the nearest she'd come to admitting defeat. Some neighbors guessed Karen still believed her formula was adequate, refusing to accept the lab findings. But the community had moved on, no longer relying on her claims. She'd lost the battle for sure, forced to watch from the sidelines as the building soared toward genuine sustainability without her overpriced nonsense. In the final analysis, Brookside Heights not only survived the Karen cleaning product meltdown, but emerged stronger and more truly eco-friendly. Freed from Karen's forced monopoly, residents discovered legitimate green brands that actually performed better. Our new Green Committee forged partnerships with local environmental groups, introducing real practices like native plant landscaping, water-saving fixtures in communal restrooms, and well-managed recycling. The building's reputation for sustainability improved, ironically, once Karen's fake eco-measures were out of the picture. In the following months, prospective buyers found Brookside Heights appealing for its honest green ethos, not a forced product scam. The entire fiasco with All Green Clean became a comedic anecdote neighbors told at barbecues. Remember when Karen forced us to buy her special soap that turned out to be junk? We tested it and exposed her scheme. Now we do actual sustainable stuff. People laughed, but also took pride in how we overcame that crisis. Meanwhile, Karen, though still living in the complex and holding a reduced board seat, never again tried to push a building-wide product. She stuck to smaller rules or harmless proposals, overshadowed by the newly vigilant board. If she gleaned any lesson, hopefully it was that false claims and profit-driven mandates have no place in a genuine green community. The rest of us continued living comfortably, using reliable green cleaners from the local store, no longer funneling money into her pockets. As for me, each time I used my favored, legitimately certified eco-friendly products, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Because behind that simple choice lay a story of how one resident's suspicious curiosity and a small lab test had toppled a petty tyrant's attempt to exploit the building. In the end, the common good prevailed, the environment was spared from subpar chemicals, and Brookside Heights reaffirmed its status as a truly mindful, community-oriented place. That's the happy conclusion. Real sustainability triumphed over Karen's duplicity, leaving our home better and greener than ever before.